Imagine being a kid in Chile in the 1980s and seeing a line of men in trench coats flashing the audience on TV. Was that the moment I turned gay? All I know is it was one of my first glimpses of desire.
Hunky Tops Talk Episode 3 First Glimpses of Desire.
Friday nights with my family in Chile in the early 1980s were a ritual. TV was the event, especially a comedy segment on Chilevisión. This is before streaming or cable or YouTube. You watched what was on, when it was on, and you watched it with the whole family because you only had one TV set. For me, those Friday nights were unforgettable, not just for the comedy, but because that's when I had my first glimpses of desire on television. They were confusing moments, mixing laughter, shame, and curiosity. And when I look back now, they tell me a lot about how queerness was allowed to appear on Chilean TV at the time, always as a joke. The lineup I remember most clearly was The Benny Hill Show, followed by Tres Son Multitud, the dub version of Three's Company. They aired back to back, and week after week, they became my gateway into queerness on TV, even though no one would have called it that back then. Let's start with Benny Hill. Most people remember the show for its slapstick chase scenes, scantily clad women, and that iconic yakety sax music. But for me, what stood out were the male nudity gags. They were supposed to be funny, but to me, they were something else entirely. There's one sketch that I remember to this day. Thanks to the wonders of the internet, I was able to find it and revisit it recently after many years of it being only a memory. I'll put a link to it on the blog. The sketch was called The Flash, and it had the male cast of the show dancing in trench coats, supposedly nude underneath. They flashed the audience to the side of the camera, and you can hear them gasp, and as a child, I just wanted to see what they were seeing. And then it comes the end. I remember being so confused. I won't spoil it, I'll let you watch it. Needless to say, that was the closest to male nudity I've seen on TV, and I was hooked. Everybody else thought it was hilarious, though nowadays I understand that non-consensual flashing isn't funny. But I just wanted to see more. I became a fan of the Benny Hill Show because of that sketch, but there were many others where men would appear to be naked just as a punchline or a visual gag. And then came Tres Son Multitud. If you don't know, Three's Company was built on the premise that Jack Tripper, played by John Ritter, had to pretend to be gay in order to live with two women. The landlords wouldn't allow a straight man to share an apartment with them. So every week the humor came from Jack exaggerating his mannerisms, acting gay, and fooling the landlords. The audience laughed, and the message was clear. Queerness wasn't real. It was a ruse, a punchline. But here's what's interesting to me. I had completely forgotten the central premise of the show. What stuck with me through the years were the short shorts, the tank tops, and Jack's friends Larry. Those were the images that imprinted on me. The humor about Jack pretending to be gay probably went over my head, or maybe it was softened in the dubbing for Latin American audiences. I still wonder if the Spanish versions downplayed that premise to make it more palatable. But even if they did, I felt the queerness between the lines. I didn't need the words to sense it. For most people, these shows were just comedy. For me, they were my first secret clues. Then there was something local that really stuck with me, even if it didn't survive on TV. In February of 1984, at the Festival de Viña del Mar, comedian Hermógenes came on stage with a character called Soapisa, a flamboyant gay sopaipilla vendor. He means he flattered his hands, he played up every stereotype. The crowd laughed, but the festival director cut the performance from the televised broadcast, dismissing it as gross and in poor taste. You have to remember, this was during the military government under Pinochet. Censorship was everywhere. Hermógenes was also known for his impersonations of public figures, even of Pinochet himself. Cutting him off after Soapisa may not have been just about the gay caricature. It might also have been about making sure he didn't slip into one of those impersonations right after. But the sketch didn't disappear. It went underground. People passed around audio cassettes recordings of the full routine. My dad had one. Neighbors had them. Everybody was trading tapes. It was protest in its own way, a refusal to let the censors erase something we'd all seen with our own eyes on TV. Looking back now, I think that was the seed of my own internalized homophobia. The first time I saw queerness reflected back at me, it was something to laugh at, or something to cut from the screen. Another example of queerness on Chilean TV came from Jappening con Ja, the long-running Chilean sketch comedy show. In the mid-80s, they did a parody telenovela called Blanca Maria, and that's where we met Eglantina Morrison. She was played by Patricio Torres, a man in drag. Eglantina was supposed to be the glamorous, scheming antagonist, dripping with melodrama. The joke was obvious. Look, it's a man pretending to be a diva. The audience was meant to laugh at her. But something unexpected happened. People loved her. She became one of the most popular characters on the show. Her over-the-top camp, her fabulous gestures, her drama, it was magnetic. She was meant to be ridiculous, but she became iconic. And then there was her sidekick, Valentino, played by Oscar Olavarria. He was tall, ragged, with the most perfect mustache and fabulous 80s hair. He was meant to be her straight-faced sidekick, a foil to her melodrama. But for me, he was just hot. He wasn't really a punchline, he was desire. So once again, I was sitting there with mixed signals, everyone else laughing at Eglantina's parody, and me sneaking glances at Valentino, feeling things I couldn't explain. Comedy was supposed to disguise queerness to make it absurd, but in the process, it gave me my first glimpses of it. When I think back on those Friday nights, what I see is a pattern. On TV, queerness was always framed as comedy. Benny Hill's sketches laughing at nude men, Jack Tripper pretending to be gay, Hermógenes con H's flamboyant sopaipilla vendor, Eglantina Morrison in drag. Every example invited the audience to laugh, never to take queerness seriously. But for me, the laughter wasn't the point. The point was what slipped through in between. The bodies, the gestures, the camp, the sparks of desire that I couldn't name yet, but that I recognized instantly. These weren't positive representations, not by any stretch, but they were my first glimpses of queerness on TV. And even though they came wrapped in shame and parody, they were powerful enough to stay with me, to shape me, and to remind me just how much representation matters. Thanks for spending some time with me on this trip down memory lane. If you enjoyed this episode of Hunky Tops Talk, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps more people find it. I would also love to hear from you. Did you grow up with shows that only let queerness in as a joke? Do you remember any of these moments from Chilean TV or from your own country's TV back then? Drop a comment below. I read them all. And some of your stories may even inspire future episodes. And if you want to go even deeper, you can always check out the blog at hunkytops.com, where I'll post some extra notes and links from today's episode. Until next time, stay hunky, and I'll see you soon.